Thank you, Eric. Everyone hear me all right? Perfect. Before we get started, just to bring a little energy in the room, I want to use this as an opportunity to express a little bit of gratitude for Voltage Control for hosting us, Jamie helping to put everything together, Douglas, Eric. Y'all make everyone really smoothly in the background. Really appreciate that. So to get started today, obviously you can see the title of this time, Facilitating Transformation. And I think it behooves us to have a really nice working definition of what we mean by transformation. How many folks in here have been a part of a transformation effort at work? And we have no idea what it really means at the end of the day, right? When I think about transformation, I think about it in very simple terms, creating lasting change. Whether that's lasting change for ourselves, for others, for our colleagues, for businesses, societies, communities, creating lasting change that actually sticks. And in thinking about it that way, I think when we go into this session right now, the best way to practice those skills of change, those skills of transformation, of creating lasting change, is to start with ourselves. Start with ourselves, practice the skills, so when we're ready, we can take it out to the world, and we can help other people gain these skills as well. So what are we talking about today? In the word of modern-day philosopher and my favorite athlete of all time, Allen Iverson, we're talking about practice. Not the game, but practice. And earlier this morning, we practiced a bunch of different skills. Skills of changing the narrative, creating change through how we tell stories, creating change for the conditions, creating psychological safety, creating that safety net, and creating change for our own and mapping our own change journey. So today what we're going to do is we're going to practice skills of change of creating habits for ourselves. We're going to create behavior change in ourselves. I'm going to show you, as Eric alluded to, why starting small, starting tiny, is usually the right place to start no matter where you are. So for the past, at this point, 7 years, I've been in pursuit of answers to this question. What's the most practical way to create a lasting change? Does anyone have any ideas? Just throw it out there. I'll give my answer here in a moment. Yes, sir. I'm sorry? Just start. I love it. What other ways? What other practical ways have you? Yes, please. Create the environment. You've read the book. That's great. All right. Who else? Yes.
Document it and then reinforce those positive feelings.
Document it and reinforce those feelings. Yeah. Okay. One more. We'll take one more. I think I saw your hand go first.
I've read the Atomic Habits book, and I think they say start small.
Yes.
Pick a habit that you can start with.
Small is fast. There, yeah, exactly. Tiny. You can start at any time, no matter the conditions you're in. So what we're going to do today is we're going to walk through basically a workshop together where we use what I consider to be the most practical way to introduce change into your life, whether it's personal, professional, whatever it may be. Everyone's here for different reasons, but we're all here to learn. We're all here to help create change in our societies, in our businesses, in ourselves. Everyone's here for different reasons. They have different motivations, different aspirations, different outcomes you're trying to shoot for after you leave this summit. But I've designed this session in a way that no matter what your aspirations or your intended outcomes are for coming to the summit, you can walk away with practical change strategies that you can take with you and put into your life immediately after leaving. So I think this is a great working definition, or not working definition, but a great quote from, as Eric alluded to, a colleague of mine, Dr. B.J. Fogg. I've had the great pleasure of being able to work with BJ for the past 4 years. There's really two people that inspire me in this line of work that I do. One being BJ, and another one is here in the room today, Steph Weldy. Steph Weldy has been working with BJ for, was it 10 years now?
Just shy, yeah.
Yeah, just shy. Anyways, so this quote it will help set the scene for what we plan on doing today. There's really only 3 ways that you can create lasting change, according to BJ. Have an epiphany, change your environment. Someone said redesign your environment back here, I believe. Change your environment, or change your habits in small ways. I don't know about anyone else in this room, but I'm not a magician. I can't create epiphanies for myself. Maybe you can. I don't know. If you can, that's cool. So where can we start? If we want to create change, lasting change, transformation in ourselves, where do we start? We're going to change our habits today in tiny ways. So as we get into this session, again, I'm going to give like pretty detailed instructions, but that doesn't mean that they're going to always make sense to you. So I do encourage folks as we go through today's session, if you got a question, throw your hand up. Dom, that didn't make sense. Dom, what about this? Dom, whatever. Just go ahead and raise your question. Go ahead and interrupt. We have plenty of time to get through this. So just to get the blood flowing in true voltage control fashion, I want to ask everyone to get up. And we're going to talk to each other. So I know it may be a challenge. You may have talked to a lot of folks already. I want to ask you to try to find someone new in the room. And I'm going to invite you to first think about this for yourself. What is that one habit that you have in your life today that sparks an absolute sense of joy? And how does that habit that you have serve your identity or some aspect of your identity? Think about that for a moment. What I want everyone to do is I want you to pair up, and I want you to share your reflection with a colleague or someone in the room. Let's start with someone who you haven't met yet. Let's start there. Share your reflection to those questions.
Hi.
So we've had a chance to talk to two other people about that habit in their life that sparks absolute joy. And we asked them, what about that habit is reinforcing your identity? Or how does it serve your identity? We'd love to hear from someone. And you don't have to, and don't share your, don't feel free to, you don't have to share the habits themselves, but what did you learn from your conversations? What maybe themes did you draw from your conversations with folks? Anyone, please, yes?
Such simple things that we're doing, they're not big activities, but they're just tiny things that spark joy.
Yeah? Cool, awesome. Yeah, Stacey, is it? Okay, cool, I can see your type.
Most people I talked to did something specifically in the morning, like first thing.
Yeah.
Too late.
Yeah. Sorry, we're going fast here. Yeah, usually, we'll get in this in a moment, but identifying aspects of your routine, usually morning routines are great, and are great anchor moments for creating habits. Your name? Frank. Sorry, I couldn't see your name tag. Go ahead.
So actually, we have the same habit is to focus on something creative, both with art.
Okay.
So using art as a way to be creative, and I noticed how that spilled over into my work as well. So it's making sure that we take time out to kind of be creative and find a creative pursuit. So
That's awesome.
Yeah.
We'll take one more, and I will that's fine by me.
Both of us had a common habit around being active and healthy, and I think someone else said it, but just to do the thing and I brought up the fact that you don't want to rely on motivation because you won't have it every day, so just do a little bit of it, even if you don't feel like it.
Cool. Excellent. So you'll notice that in these conversations, at least what I noticed, I saw a lot of people light up when they got to talk about their favorite habit, even with a complete stranger. I've never met you before, I want to tell you about my favorite habit. I also heard some aspects of reinforcing parts of our identity, our creative side, our physical. Some folks identify, they like to be physically fit and active and like to cultivate habits that push that part of our identity forward. What's important to take away from this exercise is that, I believe you hit on it, I didn't hear anyone talk about anything that took a lot of motivation to get into. You're already doing things that you wanted to do, and you're just finding those habits that help support you in doing that. And as we get into more of the meat and potatoes of behavior design, if you have a pen, paper, there's a couple takeaways, and I'll call them out here throughout, but here's your first takeaway. The best way to create lasting change, and that's for yourself, that's for others, communities, businesses, is to do two things. These are called the maxims of behavior design. Help yourself or others do the things that you already want to do. And the second aspect is help yourself or others feel successful. we'll talk about those two aspects a little bit more detail here, and we'll get a little bit systematic with this. But if you take anything away from this session, when you think about designing habits or starting new habits in your life, ask yourself, is this something do I already want to do this? Is this something I already want to do? Are you helping yourself do the things you already want to do? And how can I make myself feel successful or others feel successful while doing it? So, 3 superpowers you're going to walk away with today. At least I hope you do. I'm going to do my best to make sure you get there. The first one is you're going to be able to explain what causes a behavior to become a habit. I'm going to get the trick answer out of the way. It's not repetition. You're going to be able to analyze your behavior or any other person's behavior like a true behavioral scientist. We'll get into the model of that here in a moment. And the last one, which is my personal favorite and the whole reason why I'm here, is to help you intentionally design any new habit you want into your life. And it's really important to take into consideration the aspect of your identity that you want this habit to serve. Today, we're all facilitators. When we all go home, we're brothers, we're sisters, wives, husbands, aunts, uncles. We nurture those aspects of our identity. So whichever aspect of your identity or where you are, the context matters, I guess what I'm trying to say. So when you think about the habits you want to design today, think about the context in which those habits are being designed and which aspects of your identity those habits are serving. Are those okay superpowers? We cool with that? We walk away feeling pretty good about these, like, yeah, this is a good session? Okay, cool. All right. So those are 3 superpowers, and here are the models and methods that are going to help you gain those superpowers. And these models and methods are the models and methods of a system called behavior design. The models are there to help you think clearly about your own behavior, and the methods are there to help you design for behavior change. First model we'll talk about is obviously the Fogg behavior model. It's a universal model for understanding human behavior. And this is not all-encompassing, by the way. There's a bunch of different models we could possibly go through. So I had to kind of pick and choose which ones I wanted to introduce during the session. But we'll talk about the spectrum of automaticity, too. The main method we'll talk about today, which I believe some folks may be already familiar with, is the method of tiny habits and the various steps to create a tiny habit. Going from a big, lofty aspiration or desired outcome and systematically breaking that down into very tiny, small steps that we can take and removing the guesswork along the way. So clarifying the aspiration, we're going to explore our behavior options. And this is going to be a very personal session, by the way. So there will be aspects of like engagement and sharing and all that stuff, but for the most part, this is going to be very personal because I think habits are a fairly personal and intimate aspect of our lives. But we're going to go through behavior matching as well. We're going to show you how to take a habit that you want and scale it down or start with a starter step to get going and help you find a good prompt and help you celebrate that success. But first, let's start with the Fogg behavior model. Who here is already familiar with the Fogg behavior model? Steph? No cheat, okay. All right. Cool, got a couple folks. Again, the Fogg behavior model, and this is obviously named after the guy who created it, Dr. B.J. Fogg, Stanford behavior scientist, 20, 30 years, considered a preeminent expert in this space. And when you write out the model, it goes something like this. A behavior happens when. And when I talk about a behavior, it's any behavior. So like a behavior or a habit is a type of behavior. A one-time behavior is obviously a behavior. Stopping behavior, it's a type of behavior. A behavior happens when 3 elements converge at the same moment in time. Motivation to do the behavior, the ability to do the behavior, and a prompt, a cue. Someone says, hey, do this behavior now. So when all 3 of those elements converge at the same time, you will see a behavior performed. And if any 3 of these elements are missing, if a prompt is missing, if you have low ability or low motivation, you'll see here in a moment, you will not see the behavior, you will not perform the behavior. And you can actually visualize this model on 2 dimensions. Across the vertical axis here, we can plot out motivation. And motivation is a range from high to low, or anything in between. So we can have high motivation to do a behavior all the way down to low motivation to do a behavior. And like motivation, ability is also a range from high to low. But instead of saying high to low, we say easy to do for high ability all the way down to hard to do. Now, I want to use an example here to kind of put this model into action. Let's say the behavior we're trying to get someone else to do is we want them to donate $100 to the ASP or the local dog shelter. Let's start there. If they have high motivation to donate to the local dog shelter and it's fairly easy for them to do, we plot them up here in the upper right-hand corner of the FOG behavior model. When prompted to make that donation, they'll reliably do that behavior every single time. Conversely, if someone has low motivation to donate to a local dog shelter or animal shelter, maybe they don't like animals for some reason. If you don't like dogs, that's a different conversation, but that's just me. And maybe it's really hard for them to do, right? Maybe they're just not able to do it. Maybe they don't have enough money to do it. Maybe they just don't have the time to do it. It's too physically, it takes too much physical effort to do. We plot them down here. When prompted to make that donation, they will not make that donation. What I haven't shown you yet is there's actually a really cool relationship between these first two elements, motivation and ability. And that relationship is represented by this cool little green curved line called the action threshold. Essentially, this action threshold is here to signify one thing. If anyone is above this action threshold or action line at the point of being prompted, they'll reliably do the behavior every single time. That includes yourself. We like to say prompts are effective above the action line. If anyone is below the action line or the action threshold at the point of being prompted, they will not do the behavior.
Is ability relative? Is it subjective or is it objective?
Ability is dependent upon the person. So I'll give you an example here. If I ask Jeff Bezos, who loves dogs, to make a donation to the ASPCA, he has high ability to do it. He has the time, he has the money, it's not that hard for him. But maybe a college student who's like strapped for money and they don't have a lot, they don't have the ability to make the donation, they're in class, it's too hard. When they're prompted to do it, they'll probably, they'll fall below it. So it's all dependent upon the person. Ability is not a universal, everyone has the same ability to do a behavior. Everyone has different elements of ability to do a behavior. What I'm showing this to you now because I want you to think clearly about this model as you go through the next steps. We'll do some activities here to create our habits. What you notice here is like I said, there's a relationship between motivation and ability. It's called a compensatory relationship. The more you have of one, the less you need of another to get above the action line. So what you see here is if someone's highly motivated to do a behavior, think about yourself in this example. If you're super motivated to do a behavior, you can do both easy and hard to do behaviors. And if something is easy to do, you don't have to rely so much on motivation in order to do that behavior. Hence why we're here today. When we design our habits, we're going to design our habits in a way where we can get into that upper right-hand corner, kind of stack the deck in our favor to get into that upper right-hand corner. We're going to align on an aspiration or desired outcome, something that endures from a motivation perspective. We know our motivation, fluctuates from context to context over time, but we're going to align to an aspiration or a desired outcome that we have, something that has enduring motivation, and we're going to pick very specific behaviors, make them super easy to do, so we can reliably be above that action line when we prompt ourselves to do those behaviors. So that's why I wanted to introduce this to you now. And this is a great troubleshooting, this is a great model for analyzing behavior. So we think about maybe outside the context of this workshop, we're at work, we want people to show up to a meeting, and people are showing up late or not showing up at all. First thing we need to ask ourselves is what's making it hard for those people to show up to the meeting on time. Usually, a lot of times we start with motivation. We think, if we just motivate people, they'll do the things that we want them to do. We just need to motivate them, motivate them, motivate them. What I hope you take away here is ability is probably where we should start. How can we make things easier for people to do, for things we want them to do, including ourselves, and for things we don't want people to do, how can we make them harder? How can we get them below the action line? So thinking about this adds a little bit more of an element of first starting with how do we make something easy? How do we make a behavior easier to do so we can create a habit out of it? And then we'll talk about motivation later, because motivation fluctuates over time, as we know. It's oftentimes that we hear when people create habits that they start at a desired outcome or an aspiration or a goal, and they just kind of guess as to how to achieve that goal. I want to get better sleep, so I'm going to buy this fancy pillow, or I'm going to get these new sheets, or I'm going to get to bed at 9 p.m. every single night without fail. And you kind of just scattershot a bunch of different behaviors to hit that goal. When you clarify the aspiration, and you'll see here in a moment when we explore our behavior options, what we're going to do is we're going to ask ourselves, if I could do anything, we're going to generate a big list, and then we're going to whittle it down to the ones that are most effective for you, instead of just guessing. But it's important to have a clarified aspiration or an outcome so we know which are going to be most effective for us moving forward, so we're not just guessing. I know we just flew through probably the hardest thing to do in behavior design, and I'm not going to just gloss over that fact. But again, we're just practicing this. But I hope you see now that folks who studied, folks who use behavior design, we like to get very specific about the behaviors that we like to change, whether it's our own or for others. And you'll notice that a lot of times, and I think everyone here at one point in time raised their hand, like, I've been a part of a change transformation, I've been a part of a transformation effort in the past. When you go back to work, in the context of work, when you go back to work, maybe you're already still in that transformation effort. When you go back to work, you hear people talk about what we need to get done in order to transform our business. In my experience, I'm going to project a little bit, rarely will you ever hear them speak specifically about very specific behaviors that people need to do. They'll speak in generalities. We need to create value chains. We need to align business incentives. The hell does that mean? What are people actually doing? So this is an opportunity for you to look at your behavior and other people's behavior in a different lens and start maybe to coach them a little bit. Like, well, what do you mean by aligning incentives or creating value streams? What are people doing to, like, if you were to watch someone create a value stream, what are they doing in order to do that? Start to think about behavior, your own and theirs, in a little bit different way. So what have we done up to this point? And you continue working. I'm just going to keep talking here. So what have we done up to this point? We've clarified an aspiration or a desired outcome that we want, whether it's a professional, personal, whatever it may be, something that matters to us. We've explored various avenues to achieve that aspiration or desired outcome. Again, we did a generative exercise to just explore what we could possibly do to achieve something that matters to us. And now we've done focus. This is called focus mapping, by the way. We've brought focus to the high impact things that we want to do that allow us or help us achieve that aspiration or desired outcome. Now we get to the meat and potatoes of the tiny habits. We're going to start tiny. If you were here to distill down this whole idea of creating these tiny habits, it really boils down to this. Take something you want to do, distill it down into its smallest form, find where in your environment, in your life, that habit fits best, and nurture its growth. That's no different than how you create habits naturally. Now we're just designing very specifically and systematically in a way that habits naturally form anyways. So what are we going to do now? We're going to take those golden behaviors and we're going to make them create the tiniest form possible that still provide meaning to us at the same time. In a moment here, I'll talk about now, with the tiny habits recipe. Remember, can someone remind me what the three elements are? A behavior happens when three things come together. What are those three things? Okay, I heard it. We have this recipe set up this way because after I do a behavior, I will do my now new behavior and immediately celebrate by, we'll get that here in a moment. The after I is, we'll focus here first. The after I is the anchor moment. You're going to use your existing routine as your prompt. So it's not going to be an external prompt. It's not going to be your phone dinging. It's not going to be you putting up a sticky note. You're going to use your existing routine as a reminder to do your new habit. Things that you already do consistently in your life, you're going to use those as your reminder. Those are called anchor moments. I will, that's your scaled back gold behavior. That's the new habit that you want in your life. So let's find a good prompt for you. I already hear some folks talking about their morning routines. You're already kind of ahead of the game here. That's cool. That's cool. We're going to identify some good prompts for you. One more new term here I want to introduce is identifying the trailing edge of that anchor moment. Identify, instead of the first thing you do in a sequence in a starter step, you identify the last sequence of something you do in your daily, weekly, monthly routines, whatever it may be. And I'll give you an example here. I chose the prompt of brewing a cup of coffee in the morning to wipe down one countertop in the kitchen. This is important because it matches the physical location of where I want to do my new behavior, matches the frequency, and in some aspects, it's kind of thematic for me. So this is a good match for me because I was already in the kitchen, brewing a cup of coffee, let me wipe down the countertop. But that wasn't the trailing edge prompt. That prompt didn't have its trailing edge identified. So what's the trailing edge of brewing a cup of coffee, at least in my life? Press brew on the Nespresso machine. Anyone have an Nespresso machine or like a Keurig or anything like that? Okay. Y'all know you have to do something. You have to get the pod. You got to put the pod in. You have to check for water. Make sure there's a cup. Hit the button. There's like actually 4 or 5 things that you do just to get a cup of coffee. So what's the last thing that I do? I hit brew. Hitting that button is my prompt to wipe down the countertop in the kitchen. This is the power of using your existing routine, not reminders on your phone, not sticky notes on your computer, using your existing routine to help you identify and do a new habit. I want to talk about one more model. And again, the models are here to help you think clearly about behavior. The methods on the right are here to help you design for behavior change. So I did have this cool little thing pulled up on Menti, but we're going to skip it. I just want everyone to shout out some answers. What do you think causes a behavior to become a habit? I gave you a hint earlier. It's not repetition. One more time. Positive reinforcement. Cool. Anyone else? Desire. Is that what you said? Desire? Okay, great. Knowing your why. Okay, cool. Okay, we have the scientists in the group. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
It has a low cognitive load. I don't have to think about it. It's easy to do.
Okay, we'll definitely talk about automaticity for sure. One more. These are all great, by the way. Do we have any other guesses as to what causes a behavior to become a habit? I said I didn't want anyone to say repetition. I didn't want, because I'm about to say no, that's wrong, and I didn't want to embarrass anyone. So I was like, no, it's not repetition. Go ahead. Reward. Okay. Let's talk about that for a moment before we talk about. So, Dr. Fogg likes to talk about these ideas of rewards. You hear about it in pop culture. You hear about it. If you reward the behavior, you're reinforcing the behavior. What's important to take into consideration is that the word reward is kind of circling the right answer, but it depends on when that reward is given for the behavior. If it's an incentive for out into the future, that's not going to create a positive emotion, which increases your automaticity. But if it happens immediately after you do a behavior, that's getting closer to the answer. So we'll talk about how celebration and creating positive emotions helps create that aspect. But be very careful when we use the word reward. The timing of the reward matters a lot. So let's get into it. When we think about behaviors, let's first talk about habits. We talk about habits, usually we talk about them in terms of these are things that we can do just automatically. It doesn't take a lot of thought, it doesn't take a lot of effort, just boom, we do it. We jump in the car in the morning, we drive to work. Sometimes we don't even think about how we get there, and boom, we show up to work, whatever it may be. So these are habits, are behaviors that are fairly automatic. So you can think about behaviors living on a spectrum of automaticity. How automatic is this behavior? How automatic is that behavior? And you can think about this on a range from left to right. Things with no automaticity, behaviors are like choices or decisions that we have to make. Where am I going to go on vacation? What am I going to eat for dinner tonight? Which plane ticket am I going to buy to get to Austin, Texas for this summit? Which airline am I going to use? It takes deliberation and some choice and decision making. Whereas behaviors with high automaticity or very automatic, you can almost think of them as reflexes. And on this range, you can think of anything towards the right-hand side as a very strong habit. You can have very strong habits with high automaticity, weaker habits with still some automaticity, but not quite as much as your stronger habits. And then everything else to the left is not a habit. So the question I've been asking is, what causes a behavior to become more automatic? What causes a behavior to move closer to the right-hand side of this model? And I heard some great answers. I heard Pretty much I think some folks even got it correct. It's not repetition. Emotions make behaviors more automatic. It's the emotion that creates a habit. It's not the repetition. I'll ask a quick question before we move on here. How many folks have used Uber to get around town? Okay. How many times did you have to use Uber to know that it was superior to calling a cab? It felt amazing, right? It felt like it was magic. I just put in an address, a car came by, picked me up, whisked me up, nice person drove me to my destination. It felt amazing. Feeling that emotion, that positive emotion, probably made you want to use Uber again the next time, and the next time, and the next time. So it's the emotion that created the habit. The repetition makes a behavior easier to do. It gives you more skill to do that behavior. Lifting a 5-pound weight every day for 5 minutes, you're gonna get pretty skilled at that over time. It's not the repetition that's creating the habit. You're creating a skill. You're creating a skill. It's making it that 5-pound weight is going to get easier and easier to lift in every subsequent time. So you're increasing your ability through repetition, but it's actually the emotion that creates the conditions for a habit to form. And someone had mentioned dopamine, the brain reward circuitry. We won't get into like the science of it, but essentially, yeah. So why am I talking about this? In order to wire in these habits effectively, we need to somehow create a positive emotion. And we think about creating a positive emotion, a skill that we can bring into our tiny habit is celebrating our success. After I hit the Nespresso button, I will wipe down one countertop and give myself a fist bump. Create a positive emotion immediately after doing that behavior. So it wires in a habit, and I feel good, I feel successful, and I want to come back and do it again. So after I brew my Nespresso machine, or have to hit brew on my Nespresso machine, I will wipe down one countertop in the kitchen and immediately celebrate by, giving myself a fist bump and smiling in the mic. Oh, I forgot that part. Yeah, I look in the microwave mirror. I'm a huge weirdo. I do smile in the microwave every once in a while. I forgot I put that in there. Wow. Didn't think, there you go. Things that are revealed in front of 100 people that you didn't think would be revealed. All right, cool. A big part of wiring in a new tiny habit is rehearsing that habit. So for instance, when I showed you that habit of wiping down the countertop, I did it like 10 times in a row. I walked out of the kitchen, I walked in. I didn't actually brew a cup of coffee every single time. I brewed the water, just hit the button. I walked in, hit the button, wiped down a countertop, fist bump, walked out of the kitchen. Turned back around, did it again. It looked really silly, but it helped, and it wired it in. The very next day, it was very automatic. I didn't even have to think about it. I was like, oh, of course I hit the brew button, I wiped down the counter. So take these cards with you, put them in your back pocket, your bags, whatever it may be. And whatever environment that your new tiny habits you want to do these in, make sure that you rehearse them after you leave today. And make sure you're rehearsing the celebration aspect of those tiny habits. That's the important part. A lot of people skip that. It's like, I'll just do the tiny habit. I'll do the celebration later. No, celebrate every single time. Again, it's that positive emotion. It's the emotion that creates the habit. It's what moves it into automaticity. Celebrate every single time. This is going to maybe sound a little, I don't want to say overstated, but I do want everyone to take a moment to recognize how far you come in just an hour and a half. Not to compare, but think about how many people are outside of this room right now who want to make a change in their lives. They don't know where to start. Y'all have taken an amazing first step today, and the idea here is as you walk out of this room today, share what you learned. Teach people the FOG behavior model. Learn about the FOG behavior model. Teach it to people. Use your skills of change to help other people change their lives as well. Don't just hold all the magic for yourself. Apply these skills, get better at them, create habits, put those habits, troubleshoot those habits. If you miss a habit, ask yourself, what can I do to make this easier? Do I need to switch up the prompt? There's another method in tiny habits called iterate, troubleshoot, and expand. We didn't cover that today because obviously there's nothing to troubleshoot. We haven't put them into practice yet. But do take note that if you don't do a habit, take it as a moment of curiosity why did I forget to do that? Or why am I not doing this? Explore that. But take a moment to recognize how far you've come today in just an hour and a half. Officially an hour and a half in about 5 seconds. But also don't hold it all for yourself. If you learned something that you really enjoyed, share it with others, get them curious as well. Maybe you can have a big impact on their life as well, in very tiny ways. For those who don't want to share vocally what they thought or what they learned, feel free to scan this QR code, give me some feedback. But I'm looking for feedback. How'd it go? What'd you learn? What's one thing that resonated with you in today's session? Outside of my hand is hurting because you just made me write a mile a minute for an hour and a half.
Dom, thank you. I do think we did come pretty far, at least I feel like I did.
Good.
The emotion nugget was definitely something that was sort of a new nuance to me.
Cool.
And I like the idea of cheesy celebrations. So you the man.
Good.
I'm the woman.
Let's
you
go.
are awesome.
Let's go. All right, we'll take time for one more because I know we're out of time. I know Eric and Douglas have some pretty important things to wrap up. So we'll take one more insight, one more aha moment.
I really like the idea of going deeper because we could have stopped at this first step and been like, okay, we feel good about that, and then tried to figure out how we can activate against it. But it was like, no, take it kind of a step further. What does that mean? Kind of just dig deeper, and then put it on like a grid so that you could really, really understand which ones are the easiest ones, but still going to help you the most. So just the overall framework was very good. And
Cool.
then specifically just not stopping at the first thing that you come up with. It's like dig a little bit deeper, like doing the double click.
There's so many paths to achieving the things you want to achieve in life, and you learn the skills of how to navigate that. It's cool. Thank you all so much. Appreciate that.